Miesha, what did your battles with Ronda Rousey mean to you and the sport of MMA?
Well, I think that the battles between Ronda and myself they're very important to my storyline, very important to my history, and they're real. I think it is the only real, true rivalry in women's martial arts. And you see that it sort of kicked off it was the springboard for women's martial arts. If you want to, kind of deem it that way, if you think about it, it's what allowed the UFC to have women inside the UFC, because before that, it was never an option. There was no, people would ask, Dana White, when are you going to have women in the UFC? And he would be quick to answer, never. But with Ronda's and my rivalry, it was very true. There's nothing fake about it. We weren't trying to just cause a rift to grab people's attention. I didn't even know that would be a thing. I mean, it was just, we truly got off on our own foot, and we just didn't like each other. I didn't like her antics. I thought she was disrespectful, and I thought that she kind of marched in like she was large and in charge well before she really was anything to talk about. Before she was well known, she came in with a very brash attitude, and I wasn't used to that. Most of the girls inside the sport it was like a sisterhood, for a lack of better terms, because it was such an uphill battle to get anywhere. It was like we knew we kind of had to stick together, at least originally, against all other influences, because everyone else was against us. And even though we were fighting each other, we were also fighting with each other for a bigger cause. And then Ronda came in and kind of really marched to the beat of her own drum and just totally caught me off guard. And I thought, who is this kind of obnoxious person? Who does she think she is? Well, later on, she became to be the biggest star of women's martial arts, but it was that rivalry that really set the tone, that women can fight, we can be entertaining, we are tough, and we can bring it. We have everything that the men have to offer, and maybe something else that's just a little bit unique.
Do you think that also resonated for women in other walks of life to be able to do things?
I do think so. I think that, for one, it opened the door for women to become fighters. It became more acceptable. So I think parents started putting their girls in wrestling and starting to look at the fact that women can do combat sports. So I think that example, we see a lot more little girls inside the practice room now than we did when I was little. When I was little, there was next to none. I wrestled in high school, and I had one other female counterpart that was there for 3 of the 4 years out of wrestling, and 1 year I was the only female. And now at my high school, there's a full-on female wrestling team. So with all that being said, you just see the scope of things starting to change and people's mindsets starting to change about what is acceptable for women to do. And realistically, that shouldn't even be a question anymore. It never should have been a question, but it was a question for a long time. But now you see that women are becoming more empowered, and that it's acceptable for them to do and have the same dreams that men do. And I think in other walks of life, it's encouraged women to be stronger and more confident and more independent and fight for their dreams.
And Miesha, I want to approach this question away, and I want to be respectful about it. I think it's important. When you mentioned that in high school, so you're competing against the boys because basically there were no girls competing in amateur wrestling. So then when you got to your senior year, you were able to win a state title against girls, because then I guess there were enough girls starting to compete in it. But I'm wondering too, back when you're growing up, you were sort of a tomboy then. You were competing against boys in sports, and I'm guessing that helped you elevate your game. Do you think nowadays you don't have to compete against boys because there are enough competitive girls out there to elevate your game?
Well, I think it depends on your sport. I think for wrestling, there's a large opportunity for women to train primarily with women. But it also, again, again, depends on what state you're coming from, and even probably down to what high school you attend. So the opportunity is still growing. Women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport, I believe, in any school. And I think even in just the United States in general, that women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport. So there's room for advancement, obviously, but it's working, and women are getting more and more opportunities. Now, as far as fighting goes, I don't believe that there's enough women for women to just train with women. There's still a need for women to train with men because there's just not enough other female partners to train full-time. However, at my team at Extreme Couture, right now we're sitting at about 6 or 7 female athletes, really high-level top female athletes that do get to train with each other and push each other, but then that's also, again, that's not enough to consistently train with. You have to kind of rotate your training partners, and depending on who you're competing against next, you may need different partners for each training camp to prepare correctly. So you do tend to train with guys also in that aspect.
Now, Miesha, we'll wrap this up. Mentioning Ronda Rousey, now she's doing really incredible things with WWE. Did it surprise you at all? Because I know you talked about Ronda when she first came in, but did it surprise you at all, or no, that, yeah, I could see her doing that? And hey, has Miesha Tate ever been contacted by WWE or had any interest in it?
So I have not directly been contacted by the WWE, but we had a guest on a couple weeks ago on Sirius XM